So on Valentine's Day, Joe Biden called Congress to initiate common sense gun control. Well, now House and Senate Democrats have taken up that call and have introduced new gun control bills today. So let's talk about them. Real quick before we jump this video, if you think that the government needs to keep their hands off of our firearms, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to thank a new sponsor of the channel, and that is going to be Ace Link Armor. They are a company out of the state of California. This is their Formosa plate carrier. They have level 4 plates in here. These are ceramic plates, so they're higher end plate carriers. Plates for those of you that are looking for something like that, and they don't break the bank. Some of their bundles range from $500 to $600 depending on what level plate you get. So I highly recommend you guys take a look at them, and if you use the code ARMSCHOLAR, you will get 10% off of your order. So I'll put links to all this down the details section. So like I said in the intro, on Valentine's Day, Joe Biden called Congress to initiate common sense gun control. This ranged from things like background checks to bans on assault weapons, bans on magazines, large capacity magazines, and then he also called for removing liability protection for gun manufacturers. Well, now Congress has taken up at least one of those calls and is kind of working its way through and is checking off the first one on Joe Biden's list, and that is initiating universal background checks. And today we had multiple bills introduced at the Senate level and House level for these types of things, for background checks. So let's talk about some of these. And some of these are old bills that are getting reintroduced. So we had language that we knew prior, and a lot of these are now going to be actually streamlined. And some of these they are saying are going to be voted on in the next couple of weeks. So the first one is going to be HR 8. Its prior iteration was also HR 8, and it is called the Bipartisan Background Check Act of 2021. Prior, it was the 2020. And essentially what this is, it is a bill in the House. It already has 7 co-sponsors as it was filed today. It already has 7 co-sponsors. Some of these even have more co-sponsors. And actually this bill had passed the House prior. Prior, it was passed by 240 votes to 109, and even 8 Republicans voted in favor of passing this bill. So it's looking very much likely, like again, HR 8 will pass the House once again like it did before. Now, the goal of HR 8 and one of the other bills that we're going to be talking about later is to close the various loopholes that they're saying as far as background checks and private party transfers. What this bill is seeking to do is require that all firearms transfers, sales, all of those things have to go through a licensed dealer, meaning that there will be no more private party face-to-face transfers without going through an FFL and a background check. Many states already have something similar to that, like California. California, you cannot initiate a private party transfer without going through an FFL, and now HR 8 is going to seek to do that nationwide. Now, HR 8 also carves out exemptions for specific classes of individuals. The first common one is law enforcement agencies, law enforcement officers while in the course of their duties. And then they also have some family exemptions. And this is kind of one of those ways that they try to soften the blow of these bills, similar to how California and some other states have done this as well when it comes to private party transfers. They carve out interfamiliar transfers, meaning that there are various categories of family transfers like fathers to sons, mothers to daughters, up and down lineage. This one is a little bit more expansive, so I think they're trying to soften the blow even more by including things like transfers from uncles and aunts to nieces and nephews, grandfathers to grandchildren. Step parents are also included in the exemption. So it's much more broad than some other state exemptions. And I think that, again, is to soften the blow of the bill like this that is seeking to do a broad overarching background check for all firearms transfers. They also carve out the exemption to where if you're loaning a firearm, you don't have to go through the FFL and the background check and all that. And again, I think that's a mechanism for them to try to soften the blow of this bill. Now, the next one is the Background Check Expansion Act of 2021. And this is introduced into the Senate by Congressman Chris Murphy out of Connecticut. Very similar to HR 8, almost identical, and it seeks to do the same things, create a universal background check for all sales and transfers of firearms, where you have to go through an FFL for private party transactions, where you have to run the background check, and including all those exemptions as well. So like you're seeing, a lot of these bills are getting clones. Some of them are going to be in the Senate, some of them are going to be in the House. And this one, actually, the Background Check Expansion Act that's going to be in the Senate already has allegedly 44 senators who have co-sponsored it. So very significant. Like I said, there's a lot of co-sponsors that are already hitting these bills. And again, some of these are actually having calls within the next 2 weeks to get votes on. So they're bypassing a lot of the committee stuff, and they're going to get votes here pretty soon. So they are aggressively taking up Joe Biden's calls for things like this, background checks, and who knows, within the next couple of weeks, we might have some other things hit as well, like assault weapons bans, magazine bans, maybe in that liability. Right now, they're checking off that first thing by introducing various bills targeting background checks. The next one is going to be HR 1446, and this is called the Enhanced Background Check Act of 2021. And this bill had a prior iteration, which was HR 1112, which was introduced last year. And last year, it actually passed the House as well. 228 votes in favor of it to 198. 3 Republicans voted in favor of this bill while 3 abstained. And so what HR 1446 does is it's interesting. It goes in and changes the NICS requirements. Currently, the FBI must give some sort of determination back to gun shops after a NICS check is run to them within 3 days. Well, this bill seeks to change that requirement and extend it out to 10 business days. Important, it's 10 business days, not just 10 days. So it's not including weekends, state holidays, things like that. So it's actually a further timeline than some people would expect. And what's interesting is the current state of the law says that if the FBI doesn't give some sort of determination back to gun shops within 3 days, the gun shops can proceed with that transaction unless they get some sort of negative determination back from the FBI within those 3 days. This is extending that timeline out to 10 days, but it also puts the earnest on the actual purchaser. So if you do not get a determination back within those 10 business days, then it is on you, the purchaser, to within the next 10 days, so it's a 10 days plus another 10 days after that 10 days has run, so it's 20 days total, 20 business days total. It's on you to actually petition the FBI for some sort of determination saying, hey, if the 10 days have run, you haven't given me some sort of answer, I'm responding within the 10 days after that, what's going on with my background check? And the last one that's been introduced today is the Protecting Domestic Violence and Stalking Victims Act of 2021, and it's introduced by Senator Klobuchar, which a lot of you guys are very familiar with her. And so this bill already has 37 co-sponsors, and like I said at the beginning of this video, some of these bills already have a lot of momentum behind them, and they already have the momentum of the president calling for them, and a lot of other Democrats instituting their own bills. So some of these might have a ton of momentum behind them, so we really need to get active against them. This was, again, another prior iteration bill. I think the prior one was Senate Bill 120. And there's going to be a bipartisan companion bill within the House, was probably going to mirror this one as well, like we saw with some of the other bills with the HR 8. And this one is going to be allegedly closing the boyfriend loophole. And the whole point of this bill is to expand some language within the federal laws to include various things like prohibiting partners, spouses, even boyfriends, anyone who has you have a restraining order against from possessing firearms or getting firearms because of those types of restraining orders, domestic violence, and even they include misdemeanor stalking charges or convictions can also prohibit you from possessing firearms. So this is really trying to expand current domestic violence language and things like that. And the scary thing about this is once they kind of do this first step, what then will they expand it to beyond that? What other types of restraining orders, convictions, misdemeanor charges, things like that? How far could they expand this language down the road after they get this first step going? What's interesting about all this is that very quickly, Democrats in Congress took up Joe Biden's call and are trying to check off that first item on his list, being background checks. And they are reinitiating various bills that have passed prior, and now they have even more numbers in Congress. And so it's very concerning. We all need to be very active on these. We need to contact our local representatives, let them know that we do not agree with these various bills. I will put all the language of these bills that I can find down the detail section so you can look at them for yourself, so you can have the names and have discussion points for your representatives. But we need to get active against these things, because we definitely don't want the expansion of background checks and all of this nonsense that's being proposed right now. And this is just, I think, in my opinion, going to serve as the first step towards larger gun control as well. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure to hit that notification bell, because that helps the channel analytics, helps us spread the word about the Second Amendment, also spread the word about things like this that are going on in the US that affect our Second Amendment rights. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.